Good evening, everyone. Thank you for braving the Michigan winter to come to the Midland Center for the Arts, the beautiful Midland Center for the Arts, one of our crown jewels in our community. Midland Center for the Arts. For mid-century modern Midland. Let's just talk about the Center for the Arts just a minute. We walked in last week, as we were supposed to meet last week, but because of weather, as you know, we didn't meet. And when I walked into this room, this visceral thing happened to me because I was fortunate to grow up in the city. And I was fortunate to grow up in this building, doing plays and coming to lectures and reminding me about the power of space and structure and the impact it has. And that's why we're here today, to talk about buildings, to talk about the impact they've had on our lives, whether they were schools or houses or churches, and this incredible collection, this unique and really unprecedented collection of one style of architecture that our city has that helps define us and helps differentiate us from all other communities. When we met about 2 years ago to talk to you about mid-century modern Midland, this was our statement. This was the actual slide that we wanted to document, preserve, celebrate, share, and perpetuate this architectural heritage that's so unique. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about what we've done thus far and talk about some really exciting things that you've helped us with and some tools that we've created so that we can all access this information, this heritage, and so that the world can know more about us and come to visit us to see this unique architecture. I have to click the slides, excuse me. When we met, we talked about the things we wanted to do and why, kind of our goals, that we wanted to create a better understanding of what actually mid-century modern architecture meant. We wanted to identify the architects that contributed to this heritage. You know, why didn't we know some of these names? We knew a few, but why didn't we know more? We wanted to articulate and have accurate listings of the projects for each of the contributing architects and designers and engineers. We wanted to document the craftsmanship because this is one thing that we notice, and I'm sure you notice, when you see a publication, they show us a house in some other state that says mid-century modern. We look at it, we're like, wow, we can see some of the tenants, but look at the difference in quality, that Midland has this standard of quality that's different. We have our own definition of very high definition of mid-century modern that we want to share, that we want to document all building types, not just residential structures, preserve and protect these structures, which we can do now that we know more and we have data on them and documented information. We can then protect them so that they go into the future. That we can create tools to promote the structures and this heritage, which is really why we're here tonight. We're so excited to share these tools with you. To promote Midland as an architectural destination, because this is something that's very rare and unique. We have so many incredible things in this town to share that help us obtain such a high quality of life and an appreciation for quality, and this is yet another thing that will help drive people here. That will also impact economic development, impact property values as we have more appreciation for this craftsmanship and this design heritage, and to perpetuate this heritage and this focus into the future, because we have to protect these things that are unique about our city, that we can't start doing things to look like other cities. We are Midland, Michigan. We are science, we are architecture, we are education, we are family. Let's protect that and take that into the future. How have we done this? We've done it by bringing you, the community, together to talk about this heritage and to get us all involved, because when you live in Midland or grow up here, this is a part of your heritage. We've also done it through articles that either we have written or others have written about the work that happened here and the work that we're doing here. We've brought experts in that talk about mid-century architecture or just architecture. Just make us more knowledgeable about architecture and design, because in our world today we build things fast and we don't think about the impact of buildings. We think about getting something up quickly instead of, wow, let's build something that is functional but can be beautiful as well as functional. So bringing people in to tell us more about ourselves and just to broaden our knowledge is a really important part of what we're doing. That we're getting you into structures, that we're having open houses and tours of the buildings, mostly residential because we can access a lot of the other buildings, so that we start to learn, well, how is Alden Dow's work different than Jack Hallett's, than Jack Fagley's, than Red Warner's, than Harvey Upton, so that we can learn about these differences within this whole realm of mid-century modern architecture. We took a trip last year through mid-century modern Midland to Cranbrook. Let's look at Eero Saarinen and Iljo Saarinen. Let's look at the other architects and designers. Mid-century design's birthplace is Michigan and Cranbrook. So again, let's broaden our understanding so we then broaden our appreciation for what we have and how we fit into the rest of the world in this design philosophy. Another really important part of this is community partnering. That twice now we have worked with the Zonta organization in Midland with their Christmas walk. Back in 2004, during Mr. Dow's 100th anniversary year, we said, could we do all Alden Dow buildings? And a few years back, we said, could we do all mid-century buildings? There was a little reluctancy back in 2004. They said, well, we're not sure it will sell. And so we asked Zonta, well, how much do you usually make from the Christmas walk? If you don't make that amount of money, we will make it up. And they brought in twice the amount of money they had ever had at a Christmas walk. And the second highest year was just a couple of years ago when they focused on all mid-century buildings. That we have an interest. They can set their Christmas walk apart because not only is it a wonderful Christmas walk, we can also then talk about our heritage in Midland and this design philosophy. They have now vowed that every year going forward they will incorporate at least 2 or 3 mid-century structures because they are the highest attended structures on the walk in the last few years. So this kind of partnering is essential for us. Another really wonderful thing that is happening is that our community, whether it's private individuals, whether it's corporations, whether it's even our own city, are saying there's something unique about our buildings. And does it take a little bit more money sometimes to renovate and bring things up to code or our needs today rather than just tear something down and build something new? Yeah, it might take a little more money, but there's something to be saved here that we can add to and enhance, to add to the story instead of wiping the story away. So to the city of Midland, congratulations for their renovation of the fire station, to Co-America Bank on North Saginaw for taking all that beautiful fascia work down that Jack Hallett had designed, and look how phenomenal that restoration was, to Frankenmuth Credit Union for taking this Alden Dow building. It was the Midland National Bank on the circle, taking the drive-through and encasing it, but doing a beautiful job to preserve the architecture and the detailing and to make it, again, a part of the story for the future. Another building was right across the street, our own library, the Grace A. Dow Library, that we helped redo that fascia back to an original color with the help of Wiggins Tinknell. Paul Hasselhoon, who's here tonight, helped us with that project and found that beautiful glass that's on the building with the color behind it. So now that building stands out, and now they've connected it all with that. They like that color around here. The bridge for the Dow Gardens is now that color, the sign at the Center for the Arts. So we're being a cohesive whole here. But how has all of this that I've just shown you happened? It's happened with you. It's been all of our volunteers. We've had over 60 volunteers help us with assisting to scan and document these structures, which we're still in that process, because to document something, to get proof of who designed it, who worked on it, who did that beautiful millwork, who did the custom landscaping, this takes a lot of time and effort. 20 volunteers, over 20 actually, have volunteered and helped us share these structures during our open houses. They've assisted in collection of information about the architects and engineers and designers from a personal standpoint, which we're, as Carol will tell you tonight, we're still looking for things. This isn't done. We have a really great beginning, and now we get to refine it with everyone's help. Brainstorming ways, we get constant great ideas from folks to help us on this journey as we're documenting these structures. One of the 2 next points are so exciting, that we are getting so many original building owners and their families coming forward that want to share their stories. Because when we talk about buildings, we're talking about people. We're talking about homes where people live, that had home environments created in order to raise a family. And we all live differently, as Mr. Dow would tell us, that We all are individually creative, thus we need individual environments. And these wonderful stories, the Olson sisters right now are working with their mom, Gloria Olson, an original homeowner. Mrs. Olson also was a draftsperson back in the 1940s at Alden Dow F.A.I.A, doing this life history of growing up in this house, growing up in a neighborhood they saw building up, and all these building sites were their playground growing up. And just this richness, again, because if you grew up here, this is a part of you. And then also really exciting, children and family members of some of the original architects, talking about their stories, talking about being on those job sites or meeting those people their parents, their dads were creating for. So thank you to all of you for helping us as we're documenting this incredible heritage. We realized, because we're a program of the Alden Dow Home and Studio, we really needed to set its own definition. And so we needed a logo, we needed our own identity, because at one point we want this entity of mid-century modern Midland to go off on its own, to be its own entity within our city. When we thought of a logo, I went back to what Charles Breed had created for the city of Midland back in the late 1950s, and it was used through the 60s and to the early 70s. This beautiful silhouette of structures in our town which represent the different things we do, religious structure, a home, a school, a library, industry. And the city no longer used it. The Home and Studio actually bought the rights from the city to use it. But we said it's not inclusive enough. That's just Mr. Dow's definition of Midland. And we have a much broader story to tell. And so with the help of Charles, who sadly passed away last year, and Peggy Kernstock, who worked with Charles, they created this new silhouette for us that represents more architecture and more architects in our town. This is really beautiful for letterhead, which I'll show you in a minute. It doesn't work well for a logo for an ad, sadly. And so another person who stepped forward was Leslie Fagley, the daughter of Jack Fagley. She is a designer in New York City. And when we first started this, she was like one of the first people to call and say, I want to help in some way. I grew up with all of that. It was a really important part of my life. I'm super excited about it. If I can do anything for you, let me know. In looking at her website, this is her quote from her website talking about her father's mid-century modern architecture, how that impacted her, that art and design were always a part of her life because of growing up in this town and being immersed in that world. So she created this logo for mid-century modern Midland. So together, the letterhead will include both, so that we have a new identity. Some of the volunteers who have worked the hardest and put in the most hours are the review committee. Because of the work of 30 volunteers scanning the city, neighborhood by neighborhood, structure by structure, they submitted over 800 structures that they believe had at least one tenet of mid-century modern design. We looked at and reviewed one by one a picture of every one and discussion of all over 800 structures. This committee sitting at actually the dining room table in the Alden Dow house. As you can see, we have Glenn Hallett and Leslie Warner, who are children of architects who created beautiful structures in our community. Les Tinknell, who is a fellow of the American Institute of Architects and a practicing architect in Saginaw, who was invaluable. He knew a lot of the gentlemen who created these structures in Midland. Ray Bartos, who comes from this building dynasty of Midland. And every time we put a new structure up, Ray was like, hey, I know who built that. And he could name exactly who built it and probably could tell us what kind of wood it was made out of and what kind of brick. And in addition to that, Lance Reinerson, who is a mid-century modern homeowner, a huge enthusiast and so knowledgeable, and as you'll learn in a little bit tonight, also helped us create the original database and website, helped then create the brand new website, which is so much fun. You're going to have such a good time on it. Ray Leanhouse, who's also a mid-century modern homeowner who grew up in this city, which again gave us great insight into family names of who originally owned something when we couldn't find information. Carol Neff, who I first had the pleasure of meeting a few years ago when she was teaching at Midland High, and she was a partner of ours for a class called The Theory of Knowledge, which helps develop critical thinking skills in young people, something Mr. Dow would have loved and talked about a great deal throughout his life. And Carol decided to retire from Midland High, and I think as soon as I heard she was going to retire, I think I was on the phone like, what are you going to do in your retirement? And I think she was a little taken aback. I'm like, we have this project. She's a historian. She loves history. She loves learning. She loves young people, research. And she has been the perfect person, much like Lance has been the perfect person to help us develop these tools. Carol is she is the rock of this. She is the one who's going to the city to research things. She is the one creating organization, which I have no ability for, to store all this information and so that we can share it with the world. So together, this committee has reviewed all those structures. If you are in the audience, would you please stand so we can thank you? Awesome. Thank you. Just amazing. This was the website that many of you used as you scanned information and sent it into us. This was where you could go and look at information or something we were doing, an event that we had coming up. And this served us very well, something that Lance and our staff at the Home and Studio worked on collectively so we could gather information. And the new one's just going to blow it out of the water. Wait till you see it. Kind of at the same time, we have another mid-century modern homeowner, Dan Rame, who lives over on Valley Drive, but he also was working at the time, not now, was working at the University of Michigan in the Department of Industrial and Operational Engineering. And he said, hey, I have these students, these seniors, these wonderkins, we call them when we first went to their class because we clearly knew we were out of our league technologically. And he said they could help you with a system if you wanted to be able to create a tool that would then track and route and do all these things and write these algorithms, and we were sold from the very first second. So we worked with this senior class, with Casey and Lynn Wee and Michael and Josh for a whole semester, where we gave them the information that we were collecting in our database, and they were helping us to create this tool, which would eventually become our app, which you will see tonight if you haven't seen it already. They, of course, came to the end of their semester, were hired by huge companies to go work for them. Josh actually stayed on with us as a consultant and is still working with us in that original database so we can marry that database with the website, which then creates the app that you will see and our very new website. We have been just the benefactors of just so many riches of people coming forward who want to be a part of this, who know how important this is for Midland and for the future of Midland and for documenting this legacy. So we so appreciate your participation in that tonight and as we go forward. It is now my pleasure to introduce Carol Neff, who will talk to you a little bit more about the process. Here, I'll get to the right slide page for you. Carol Neff. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I am a bit embarrassed to say that 2 years ago, I was at best a novice when it came to architecture. I am a lover of history, but architecture was not my area of expertise. In mid-century modern, I actually had to go home and Google after meeting with Craig because I was like, I don't know. I knew who Mr. Dow was. I've been to the home studio, but oh my goodness, have I learned so much about mid-century modern and about Midland. In particular, the power of learning continues to impact me. Although I'm nowhere near where these two guys and many of you are, many of my friends have described me as a architecture geek now. So let's review what we've done to collect the information in our database. Many of you were at that meeting on March 25th, 2017, and you saw this slide. And so this was our main task when I first signed on for this. This is a big city, and we have a lot of ground to cover if we want to know all of the mid-century modern structures in this 36 square mile map. The next thing for me, as I just admitted, we need to figure out what are those traits that I'm going to tell other people to go out and look for. So with Craig's help and Ray Leanhound's particularly, we decided on these 6 main traits that we would tell our scanners about and show them examples of, so that when they went out into the city, we were all kind of doing the same thing. We had some basis of consistency. We then had to divide up the city. And so our decision was to use these parcel maps. Many of you probably have seen these. If you were one of the 30 volunteers who helped scan the entire city of Midland, would you please stand up now so we can recognize you? Thank you so much. I mean, we truly we would not be here right now without the assistance of those people. It would have taken us many more years for if I was the only one doing the scanning, to be able to cover all of that territory. Scanners were given the directive to fail positive, meaning, like Craig was just saying, if you come across a structure that has some or maybe even one of these traits, but it's pretty dominant, document it. We want it in our database. We want our review committee to look at it so that we can say that we truly have covered everything, covered our bases, so to speak. So over the course of 6 months, well, let me make sure. So we divided the city, 30 scanners. Thank you, did that. Fail positive. Okay, 6 months. And Craig keeps saying over 800, which is absolutely correct. I like to say just a little under 900. Because it's 892 structures we had starting last September, I think it was. All 892 of those structures needed some research done on them, and so the building department of the city of Midland played a huge role in helping us gather a lot of that information. Some of you may recognize that dinosaur in the center there. That is a microfiche scanner. And the records of the city are microfiched now, and every structure's address has a small little slit. For those that don't know what microfiche, it's about that big. And they are scanned documents that go back to the 1940s, 50s, and 60s that we were predominantly looking at, and put in that machine, and you can read actually what they say. And what we were looking for was a particular time frame, focused predominantly on the years 1930 to 1970, because we're mid-century 20th century. We're looking to see if an architect or designer was noted on any of these city documents. Unfortunately, often they are not. And original owner and builder. Those were the 4 main things that we were looking for from the city. And we got a ton of information from those documents, and all the welcoming help from the people that worked down in the building department. They were just fantastic to deal with. After all of that research, the review committee, as Craig has already pointed out, they reviewed all 892 structures. It took us probably 12 meetings, some of which went for 4 hours. At the end of that process, which was probably another five or 6 months, we were able to identify 250 mid-century modern structures for which we knew the architect. And then there's another 250 where we certainly know why the scanner put them in the database, but we don't have the documentation to say that they are by a particular architect, designer, engineer, or we're missing some key piece of information. So of the original 892, we're looking at more than 400, and I know you can add that, it's 250 and 250, so 500. So our next step was to contact the current owners of about 400 of those homes. They received a survey. We received many of the surveys back. It was a great response. We learned a lot more information from the people who currently, some of whom were the original owners. So they could tell us that they met with Jack Fagley or Jack Lee, or they supervised a number of the gentlemen. Told me that they would come home from lunch every day and supervise the construction of their home. So we recorded all of that information. We were able to get a hold of a lot of the drawings that these owners are allowing us to scan, so we have digital evidence of their creation, and we just had some great stories, as Craig has talked about, as well as we visited many of these homes. Step 5 is probably my most fun because it was totally new to me. There's this thing called city directories. How many of you have heard of them? Whew. New, totally new. Had no idea. Phone books, I could look up someone by their last name and find out where they lived and find out their phone number. But in a city directory, you can look up the street address and find out who lives there. That's how we found out so many of our original owners. It was huge fun. I think Ray Leanhouse was the one that introduced me to the idea of city directories. Also, the Midland Daily News obituaries are chronicled on microfiche predominantly at the library, and so we were able to secure a lot of information about the architects and engineers and designers that we were looking for. This does bring up an interesting situation, again, as a historian, because you trust but verify, I think a recent president said at one point, and I had thought I found a new architect, and I was so excited, and I come to the review committee to tell them about this new architect that we have, and I'm reading the obituary, and it says that he received his degree in architecture from Michigan State University in 1935 or something like that. So I'm really excited. And I look at Les Tinknell, our architect in residence, and he's like, Carol, Michigan State doesn't have an architecture school. So totally bummed, but at least I didn't put it on the website, right? So, and Lance has told me that we've already received a comment from someone on the website has emailed in to tell me that I've got their family name spelled incorrectly. So I'm okay with that. When you go out there and you find this information, you look up your homes and things, if I've made a mistake, I want to correct it. I will not be offended if you give me better information than what we currently have. So here are our results. We have 423 mid-century modern structures that are documented in our database that you also have access to. We have identified 39 architects, all of whom have at least one structure in Midland, and as well as 8 designers or engineers who also have at least one structure. You have access to all of this through both our new website and the mobile app. So first, I think we're going to have Lance come up. I'm going to have Lance come up to help me highlight some of the options for the website for the searches, and then he's going to explain the additional benefits that the app he created will provide you. So we don't need this anymore, right? So we're just going to switch over from our PowerPoint to the website that Lance has on his computer. Oh, yes, thank you. The resolution, because we are using Lance's computer with a lot of cords and going all the way back to the projection booth. So the resolution on your computer is going to be much better than it is here, and that's going to be the same with the mobile app when he pulls that up. So it does not look that pixely on your computer. You ready?
I'm ready.
So the address is the same. It's midcentrymidland.org. You don't need to log in or register as you did for our original website. You just go right to it, and this is the screen that will pop up. And there's just a wonderful opportunity for searches of all types in that central area. So you can go by keyword. all structure types. If you click on all structure types, it breaks it down. Like we have 341 that are residential, 39 commercial, 22 educational, 15 religious, and 10 public. If you could also search by architect, and these are in by the number of structures that we have documented for them. So Mr. Dow is at the top with 113, all the way down to all of our people with 1. And then if you just click on one of those architects, all of their structures will come up for you. So you can search that as well. If you just know a keyword, you can type it into the keyword spot. So we're going to go with St. Andrews. So say you know your street address. All the structures that are on St. Andrew that we have documented so far will come up. I think there's 14 or so. And then if you go back to the top of the page, under structure type, you can click on that and it will break down, okay, now of those, we've got 10 residential, 2 public, 1 commercial. So let's say we want to look at residential. So you can dig down to that level. And then you want to know just Mr. Dow's residential. You could go under the architect section, and 5 of them are Mr. Dow's. So now you're able to drill down so that you've got the 5 Alden B Dow structures that are on St. Andrew. One of them, I think, the Heth house, the Heth residence. I wonder who lives there.
Nobody I know for sure.
Nobody? Okay, good. We have historical for Mr. Dow structures. We have a lot of the historical photographs. We have correspondence from Mr. Dow and the original owners. We have some lovely write-ups that Linda Farnick has done and put on Facebook, so I have just taken those and put them on the website. So these words are Linda's. So all the information that we have currently is on the website. Not all the structures are going to have this much information, and again, that's where many of you will come in if you do have that information. At the bottom of every page, you can choose to go chronologically back or forth from that structure, and you can just scroll through the structures as they appear chronologically for our heritage. Okay. You want to, so we've got photographs, you want to just show them there's a map. And that would give you directions to that particular structure. From here, yep. Walking, biking, car. Great. Let's say you don't know the street, but you know the owner. You could go back to the home page, type in Smith, or any last name, and then any structure that has that name associated with it will also come up. So that keyword search is just very, very powerful. We also are collecting in our database biographies of our architects, and this again is where we could really use some assistance. But we have, what you have on the database right now is the current information that we have. We would love more photographs, we would love more biography. If we click on Jack Fagley, we've got a photograph. And a wonderful biography his family wrote for him when we had his house featured in our open house. So again, we want our information to be as accurate as possible, and we want to share it with you, and this website is one tool to share it. Another tool that we can use to share it is the app that Lance created. And all of this information that we just went through, you can access the same on the app, but there are additional features on the app that Lance is going to tell you about right now.
Thanks, Carol. Well, good evening, everybody. Super excited to share the app with you for the first time. I'm going to get it up here on the screen, and I'm going to run it off my iPhone, and I'm going to hook this little cord up, and we'll be able to see it. So let's see if this works. It does. All right. So this is running live on my phone. So as I swipe here, you'll see it swipe there. So when you first download the app for the first time, you'll get this welcome screen. And this is our onboarding that shows you information that you can read about the different sections. And it's hard to read up on the projector, as Carol mentioned, because it's pixelated. But I encourage you the first time you download the app to read this. It's really great. And you just swipe through like so. And then when you finish, you click down here, Continue to App. And then you come into the home screen. Now this is the main screen you'll see every time you go into the app after that first initial time. And it breaks down the app into the different sections. So you can click these tiles to navigate from tours and maps, to architects, to structures, and to info. Also, when you're in these sections, you can jump around even quicker using the quick navs at the bottom, which as you can see, those icons are just represented there again. So I'm going to just take this quick section by section and kind of give you a little walkthrough, starting, of course, with tours and maps. So this section is unique from the website in the fact that this has driving tours. And this is what Craig mentioned earlier that the students from the University of Michigan did, where they use algorithms to find the best and most efficient routes to travel through Midland. It's just fantastic. So it's broken into two sections up at the top, pre-selected and custom routes, and I'll go through both. So pre-selected are predetermined routes that we had made that we think give you really good highlight in the overview. We have them by neighborhood, so we have Applewood, Valley, Crescent, James, Andre, Willard, and Cruz. And then we have religious and education. So these are all divided up. So let's go with overview. So I'll select it and I'll hit create tour route. And voila. So this is that pre-selected overview. And I can use two fingers and I can pinch in, I can move around, I can select any of these. I can find information about what I select. So here's the Schwartz residence in 1864. Here's a home by Hallett. And then below this is a key that kind of shows me an overview of all the different structures that make up this route. And I can just scroll through those with the finger. And then, of course, I'm just dying to actually go to all these structures and to drive past them and see them. So I can just open this in Google Maps. And there it is, and it takes into account my current location here at the Center for the Arts and takes me to the first pin, which looks to be the home and studio. And then I can hit start. And there we go, 4 minutes to the first structure. And it's a 49-minute trip overall, just in case you guys are interested. I'm sure you're going to do that right after, right?
Maybe 55 minutes tonight.
Yeah, 55 tonight with the weather. All right, so now let's go into the custom routes. This is really powerful. So the first thing we need to do is create a queue of structures that we're interested in putting onto our custom route. And to do that, we select some parameters. So first we choose the architect that we're interested in. Of course, we could choose all architects and select them all, or we could choose just one. So I'm going to go with Warner. And then you choose which type of structures. Again, I could select all or even multiples. So in this case, let's do residential and religious. You hit customize your route. And now that queue has been built. So unfortunately, Google's API only allows 24 pins in a route. So we can't just have all of Warner's. So we need to choose the ones that we want. And this is where that algorithm comes in and is really neat. So I can click to select the ones. But as you can see, it's sorted by the most efficient route. So if this was sorted alphabetically by homeowners' names or by year, you might have to drive from one side of Midland to the next side of Midland to the next, and that would take forever. So by sorting it by the best route, we can look through here and just click. So let's just click the first 24. Should have did the first 10. There we go, 23, that'll work. So I create route, and there's that custom route. So these are Warner residences and Warner churches. Wow, sorry y'all. So again, I can pinch in, I can zoom around, I can look and see what they are. Looks like we have a little cluster of them here. I didn't even know that, wow. And these all butt up to Plymouth, didn't know that either. And of course I can click and see which ones these are. And open this in Google Maps. 50 minutes. And again, it takes me to the first pin from where I am, and then it has that most efficient route. And you could combine different architects, different structure types, really whatever you're interested in doing. So I'm sure you guys are all going to be taking tours all the time. It's best to do one per day, spread it out. My wife will tell you when we first moved to Midland, we couldn't go anywhere without me driving by 6 or 7 houses. There was always this debate, like, can we please just go to the grocery store and come home? No houses today. I love it, but not today. Well, we made a tool to make it easy for everyone to do that same thing. You're welcome, honey. All right, so now I'll move on to the next section, architects. So this has that same information that we just saw on the website, just displayed in a mobile-friendly format. So I can scroll through the different bios here. This shows the first 10. I could select one, read about that architect, go back. If I click on architect bios or view all, I can get this list. I can scroll that shows more. Select another one. And just like on the website, if you just want to consume all the information, you can just swipe through here, back and forth, and just read. I'm sure this is what you're all going to do. Go home, spend all night just flipping through, reading all of this. That's what I would do. We'll go back. Again, we can do this with the structures based on these architects. Now, I want to point out the architects are sorted based on number of structures that we've identified, that we have documented information on. So Alden B has the most here in town. So I can swipe through his. Let's do view all. We get these really cool visual cards of the structures. They have the structure, original homeowner name, they have the year built, and the architect. Let's do the Ball residence. So when we go into a listing, it's broken down into sections. We have the photos at the top, and we can scroll through any photos that we have in the database. We can select one of these photos if we want. We can zoom in. Look at all this amazing woodwork that's just recently been restored. And of course, the original homeowner's name and any information that we have, again, about the structure. We have a lot on this one. The address is displayed, and I could click this and just get right into maps to take it. I could also explore more structures, and what this does is uses an algorithm to find other houses or residential structures that are like the ones you're looking at. So it takes into account the year, it takes into account the architect, and of course the structure type. It's a quick way to just continue to engage the app. So let's pick one. It's a Stein, and now I'm looking at that. All right, let's go back. So again, I can keep scrolling through here, and I can see the different architects, and I can scroll through their works. And of course, with any of these, if I just keep scrolling, I can see them all. And that would take a while. Okay, so that's the architect section. So moving on to structures. Again, it's broken into some sections. So we have search at the top. You can do keyword searches like you could on the website. So that's road, that's the architect, that's the structure type. Anything that we have information on, you can search by. You can also look at these like we did previously by architect, but we could look by structure type just by scrolling through and choosing one. And we also have the recently updated section, which is really cool. So as we get more documented information or more photos, this section will constantly be changing and updating. So when you come to the app, you know right where to go to see what's new and what's fresh. So let's start with a search. Let's do home and studio. Let it populate here. So here's the Alden B home and studio. Gorgeous photos of this place. You can read about it. And because this is open for tours, we have that information provided. Since there's a telephone number to call, we have that provided. And we also have the website of the home and studio provided. And what's also really cool is down at the bottom of structures, and architects as well, I can bookmark these. So put this on my to-do list of someplace I want to check out soon. And I can share it just by hitting share. It brings up my little share sheet with different places that I can share this with my friends. I could text them, I could email them, I could Facebook, which I'm going to do that now. I'm going to make the first public share. So this creates a post that's pre-made with a photo, and I just hit post. And now it's shared on my Facebook. So I encourage you all, if you are friends with me on Facebook, and if you're not, become friends with me and look at the gorgeous post that just got put, just like that, to my Facebook. So all my friends can know about the Alden B home and studio. So moving on to the last section here. This is just general information. So my bookmarks are here. So you can see that I saved the Alden B home and studio as a list of favorites. I can also read information about us, turn on and off push notifications. So if it's on occasionally, if we're doing events or things, we'll let you know. Of course, if you don't want to know that, you can flip it off, but you want to know that, trust me. And then lastly, you can contact us. And this is a really great place to get a hold of us if you have any comments, concerns, if you have documented information you want to provide, or if you find any bugs with the app. Be a great place to report them to us. And then there's the time. Back to the home screen. And that concludes my demo of the app. Thank you. I'm going to turn it back over to Craig.
We will switch back to the PowerPoint. I think you can tell why we're so excited. This has been 2 years of work. It's been this vision that we wanted to create for Midland, to really tell Midland's story architecturally. If we could, let me see here. We wanted not just to share it with you tonight, and we're videotaping tonight so we can share it out onto social media for those people who couldn't make it tonight or those people who live elsewhere. But this past weekend, in all the major papers around the state, there were either full or half-page ads in all the newspapers around the state to talk about Midland, to talk about this unique architecture, and to tell them about the tools that they can access now to look at it in their home or when they come to Midland, to use the app when they're here, so that we're, again, putting Midland on the map more and more with all the great things that are happening here. As we move forward, of course, we're going to constantly refine the information that we have with your help and the help of others. And I have to stress this, and we've talked about it a lot tonight, documented information. And we have a lot of folklore in Midland, like every community, that, oh yeah, so-and-so did this or that. I mean, most of these mid-century structures were credited to Mr. Dow prior to a lot of this research. And so if you have information, if you have drawings, if you have documents with the architects on them, if you have great biographies, if you have family members who have information, please have them contact us. We want this to be as accurate as possible, so that will be really important for us going forward. In that, we not only want to preserve Mr. Dow's work, we want to preserve the work of all these architects. And so the Alden Dow Home and Studio has created a space in the home and studio for a mid-century modern architect's archives. That we have taken the old apartment in the home and studio, and we have already started to collect information about the structures by other architects. We're currently working with the Hallett family to get all of Jack Hallett's original drawings and documents. We have scans of other works right now. So this will be a place that people can access this information. We also hope to work with the city of Midland as they update things in the future on the city site, that maybe when you go and look at that property tax information, that we could have this information documented there. So as you're going to buy a structure or look things up, it would be noted in the city records as well. This is really exciting, again, because this is such a broad story, larger than Mr. Dow, even though he's the one who brought mid-century to us. Also in 2019, we are planning more open houses, more trips, certainly more lectures, and to broaden our knowledge of mid-century architecture, which you will all find out through e-blasts, like at least one or two that you received today. If you're a home and studio member on our e-blast list, you received one. If you're on our mid-century modern list, you received one. On that e-blast today, you also probably saw that Dwell magazine, who we work with quite a bit at the home and studio, they today launched the feature online about this process, about mid-century modern Midland, so you can read about it, see the houses that are structured there, and it links you to the website and gives you the address to download the app. I also want to thank the trustees of the Alden and B Dow Creativity Foundation for allowing us to do this project. As you can tell, it's been a long process, very labor intensive with costs involved, and they are just as interested in preserving this knowledge and this information about Midland long term. So we're very thankful to them for allowing us to do this. We are so excited to share this with you. We want you to use this information. We want you to share this information. I think I'm going to ask Carol and Lance to come back up. We are happy to answer any questions that you might have for us, that one of us can answer it. If it's a tech question, it's going to be Lance, definitely. But are there any questions that we can answer for you right now? Yes.
Is there going to be any like next stages in terms of design? The architects work in other areas, like if there's homes or churches in Bay City or things like that, expanding to other regions is like a trend.
Right now we don't have a plan for the other communities. We really want to refine what we have and then look at Midland County. And then I think what our approach has been, what we've talked about, is let's then take the architects who designed here and then identify the buildings in the region. Because as you can tell, doing it neighborhood by neighborhood was very labor intensive here. We have now this wonderful process set forward that we can give them and help them with the process. We plan on continuing to document, but we really want to spend some time really refining what we have. So, any others? I just can't see. Yes.
On the app, we do an update on new pictures of somebody's home.
Yeah.
Do I have to update the app? Or
No.
Is it flowing from the database?
As soon as we update the content is instantly updated in the app. So it might take a few seconds to refresh to feed back out and back in, the new photos just right there.
But that assumes I have Wi-Fi, right?
Right. Or LTE internet, yeah.
Okay.
Some sort of internet connection. Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions?
Hey, Craig.
Yes.
I just want to thank you. You did such a great job, and I'm so excited about the mid-century modern architecture. And I have one question. Do you know how many of the almost 900 owners are still the original owners?
We have, I can't tell you off the top of our head, we have very few original Alden Dow homeowners, which we know the most about, of course, because we have an Alden Dow Homeowners Association. I believe we have one original homeowner in Midland who is Gloria Jacobus Olson, who lives in the structure. But as Carol said, she talked to other folks who had other designers work for them, and we do have a lot of original homeowners for Hallett and Warner and some other things. Yes?
You want us to, I know there's a section to ask questions and provide more information. Do you want us to send pictures if we're a mid-century modern homeowner, to send updated pictures of the structure?
Absolutely. That would be great.
Because at this point, you won't be able to modify those things. We can only modify them here going forward. Great question. I'm sorry, I just can't see. Yes.
Is there a listing of those that didn't pass the vetting process, or a way to nominate one that might be?
Absolutely nominate one that might have gotten past our scanners. We haven't taken anything out of the database, so any structure that the review committee said didn't quite meet the criteria, we still have that in our database. And if someone wanted to know, like if they wanted to provide more information to us, why they think it is mid-century, we would certainly take it back to the review committee. We have all of it still documented.
Great. Anyone else? We really want to thank all of you for coming out tonight. Again, this has been videotaped, so we can share it on our websites, both the Home and Studio website and our Mid-Century Modern website. Thank you for being a part of it. Thank you for giving us great suggestions and lending information. And please keep continuing to do that so that we can create an even better Midland as we go forward, but take our history and the things that made us great forward with us. So thank you so much for coming. Please be safe as you go home. Thank you.